This lesson is on adding improper fractions. You will have another lesson on adding fractions that also include mixed numbers. So up at the top of your screen, you'll see that I have the steps of adding fractions. This is regardless if you're adding improper fractions or proper fractions or mixed numbers. These are the same 5 steps for everything. But today's lesson we are just going to be adding proper fractions, to proper fractions and seeing what the results are. So the first step in adding any fraction is if you see mixed numbers, you need to change them to improper fractions. In all of these examples, as I just said, we are not going to be working with that type. So I'm going to go ahead and cross off that step. We won't have to do it here. So question number 1, it says, what is 1/2 plus 2/5? In each of these steps, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, do I have common denominators? When you're adding or subtracting fractions, as you'll find out here in the future, you cannot add or subtract fractions unless the denominators are the exact same number. So if they are not the exact same number, we have to make them the same. And we have a method that we just call it crisscross applesauce, or just crisscross, to help you remember the steps to finding common denominators. So let me show you that. For crisscross, I'm just going to draw an arrow pointing from one denominator to the opposite numerator, and then also from the other denominator to its opposite numerator. What I'm going to be doing is multiplying those numbers together, and my arrows point to the numerators showing me where I need to write the answer. So for example, let me erase that. 2 times 2 is 4, and 5 times 1 is 5. I'm going to write it up there at the top. So there's my crisscross, and then just because some of you are familiar with that little rhyme of crisscross applesauce, is that you are going to multiply then the two denominators together. 2 times 5 is 10, and that is going to be your new common denominator. Both denominators will become a 10. Alright, so there's not really rhyme or reason why it's the word applesauce other than it goes along with the rhyme that you might be familiar with. Now that we have our common denominators, so we completed step 2, we're ready to add our numerators together. So you add 5 plus 4 together to get equal to 9. Now as far as the denominator goes, it stays exactly the same. It's 10. So your answer equals 9/10. So we added our numerators. Then we're asked, okay, if it's not a grid question, we don't have any grids on this worksheet, so we're going to assume that none of these are grid questions. Is the fraction that I just added or created, is that improper? 9/10, is that improper? No, it's proper. So therefore we do not need to change it to a mixed number. So we're done with that step there. The final step is to reduce our fraction, 9/10. Can that reduce? Let me go ahead and write the factor pairs, and let's see. Well, 9 divided by 1 is 9, 9 divided by 2 you can't do, 9 divided by 3 is 3, and there's no numbers in between, so that's all the factor pairs of 9. 10 divided by 1 is 10, 10 divided by 2 is 5, you can't divide it by 3 or 4, and the next number is 5, so there's no other numbers between 2 and 5. So are there any common denominators? Just one, which means the fraction remains 9/10. Therefore it doesn't reduce. Okay, it doesn't reduce. So why does my denominator stay the same? Well, let me explain this with a picture so it'll help you understand what you're actually doing. If I had 5/10, that means, for example, you had a piece of pie that was divided into 10 slices. That's the way it was cut. My pieces may not be exactly even in my drawing, but they're supposed to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. Yeah, they're not exactly. Let me try one more time on that drawing. Okay, I tried to find a tool to help me out there with my drawing. They're still not perfect, but you're going to see the idea here. The reason why 1/2, you could see if this was a pizza that I colored in yellow 1/2 of the pizza and the other one 2/5, well, you couldn't really see it or even compare, so you can add them together until they were sliced exactly the same. That's what common denominators are. Just means that we've got two pizzas and we want to slice them the same way. So we sliced them both into 10 slices even. Well, 5 out of the 10 slices plus 4 out of the 10 slices. It's kind of like, oh, let's put it all in one box. How many slices do we have altogether? Well, 5 plus 4 is 9. And if we had 9 slices of a whole pizza, here's that whole pizza again, and we color in 9 of those, you can see that we don't have more than a whole pizza, and that's why it shouldn't have to be a mixed number at all. It's still less than one whole pizza. Now, I don't expect you to answer all of these with pictures or look at them, but it just helps explain, okay, why do we have to find those common denominators? Well, we can't put things together unless they're sliced the same way. And then when you put them together, does the numerator, is it greater than the denominator? Is there more slices than there is in one whole? And that's how you can double check to see if your answer should be a mixed number or an improper fraction. Alright, let's go ahead and do the second problem. Kind of cleaned up some things so that we had some room to work. Alright, so looking at the problem, we have 1/2 plus 3/4. Those are both proper fractions that we're going to be adding together. So we don't have any mixed to improper. We can cross that step off. Now we need to ask ourselves, do they have common denominators? Well, 2 and 4 are not common. They're not the same. So we have to crisscross applesauce. Criss, 2 times 3 is 6. Cross, 1 times 4 is 4. Applesauce. It doesn't matter if you write it right underneath the bottom of each one, or if you want to write it down here at the bottom, just showing that both the denominators equal to 8. So now we need to add our numerators. 4 plus 6 equals 10 over our denominator of 8. We're done there. Next up, we have 10 over 8. What type of fraction is that? Hopefully you noticed that it was improper. So if it is improper, we do have to change it to a mixed number. So how do we change to a mixed number? Top on the box. 8 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 8 is 8, and we have a remainder of 2. Cat in the hat, so 2 becomes the hat of the fraction, 2 over 8. So we finished step 4, and now we're ready to reduce. Don't forget that 1, that whole number, still is part of our final answer, but 2 over 8 can reduce. The factors of 2 are just 1 and 2. The factors of 8, well, 8 divided by 1 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and there's no numbers between 2 and 4 that can go into 8. So our greatest common factor is 2. That means the fraction can be reduced to 1 over 4. So the answer to problem number 2 is 1 1/4. Go ahead and try number 3. Push pause while you're working on it, and push play when you're ready to check. Alright, let's ready to check these. Step 1, do we have mixed numbers? Nope, so let's cross off step 1. Step 2, do we have common denominators? Nope, so we have to crisscross. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. Applesauce, 2 times 4 is 8. So we found our common denominators. We add our numerators as the next step. 4 plus 4 equals 8. And we keep our denominator the same. Do we have an improper fraction? No, we do not. But do you notice something else you see here? We have 8 over 8. What did we say about any fraction whose numerator and the denominators are the same? They always reduce to 1. And that's your answer, just 1. Alright, go ahead and try the rest of the practice problems on your own, and then you can self-check and correct.